I would like to welcome the Vice Rector of Formation from Kenrick Glennon Seminary in St. Louis, Father Paul Hazing. Father.
I might take this microphone off, and come around this side of the podium without causing anything catastrophic. Will that work? All right, let's see if this works out. Maybe not. No hands. No hands. That's tough for an Italian, but it's not as hard for a German. So let's just take a moment here to pause. And you've been sitting for some time, and I won't speak beyond 11:30. So you know I'll have 26 minutes here. All right? And part of what I hope to accomplish is to highlight some of what you've heard and solidify, reinforce some of the principles for building this culture of vocations. And I speak from the perspective of having been a vocation director for 7 years and now working in the seminary for the last 5. Just what it is to form a culture of vocations has a lot to do with the formation of our men. And there's a correspondence there. What do I mean by that? Let's start with, we've been tossing around the word vocation. Vocation. As Father Shea is fond of saying, it's always good to make distinctions and define your terms. He was a Basel scholar, so that means he studied philosophy really well. By the way, Father Luke Ballman lived on, I think, were you on the second floor? Your third convent. I was first convent. We were first plush because we had the rector. You were third convent, Father Monsignor Shea, right? So we were all contemporaries at the North American College, and I offered this in the introduction to this talk, that we all had Monsignor Dolan, then Monsignor Dolan, as our formator. And his talks were published eventually, but things have changed in 20 years. And we're facing some new cultural challenges. And the formation of men takes some new challenges. If you want to hear what a rector was saying in a historical moment, his book, Priests for the Third Millennium, is the book to read. That's what a rector sounds like. And it's not just for priests. 2/3 of the book is for Christian life, which will lead to another point around human formation. But I just wanted to define this term. Is this going to work? Wow, okay. Let's define our term, vocation. What is a vocation? Calling, right? Now, growing up on a farm, I'm from a farm in northeast Nebraska, so Monsignor and I had a lot in common. When we met each other on the bus going into Rome, we're like, you grew up on a farm? I grew up on a farm. There's a whole language in life there that can be shared. And calling, for us, we called the cattle. You call the wildlife. You call things when you're hunting. You make a call, and it's an occasional reality. And they respond to that call. And Jesus says so much, that my sheep know me and they know my voice. Now, Jesus is the revelation of love. And so this is a call that I would rephrase as a stable plan of love. A stable plan of love. It's not an occasional love. It's incessant, personal, concrete love in your daily life, which for many of you is revealed in a married life. And for those who are in a consecrated life, the celibate life, it's for a life with God. Now, God moves us in this calling. How? How does God make his will known to us? Well, there's a voice, right? And some will say there's a voice that can come in and just interject in our lives. That's one way of thinking of it. But I'm so fond of Monsignor Tom Richter, another Bismarck priest and longtime vocation director, who gives this beautiful image for how God moves us in love. And it's the analogy of feeding a child. I think children start eating solid food around what time? 10 months, 8 months, 6 months. Okay, so the child's just working on head control. All right. And what's the artful mother do? She doesn't just shove the crushed carrots into the child's mouth. We have some choking problem, all right? The mom will have a very artful capacity in her because she has these desires going on in her heart. I want my child to be happy. I want my child to be healthy. I want my child to eat crushed carrots. That's the concretization of love in her life. I love my child. It's the very air she breathes. I want my child to be happy. I want my child to be healthy. I want my child to eat crushed carrots. That's in her heart of love. The child, still working on head control, isn't paying attention. His imaginative universe is not even in her realm, all right? So what does the mom do? Choo-choo train, airplane. Got some quick mothers here. Good. Those are good standbys. One of my 6th graders said, my mom puts marshmallows on the end of the spoon and tricks my brother. Another 6th grader said, my mom tastes it and says, good, even though it's disgusting. And so the mother will have this really strange, what do choo-choo trains and airplanes have to do with crushed carrots? But she'll go through this very artful drawing of the child's attention. And the child will move from inattentive to attentive to curious, because the mother's so good, to I want the crushed carrots. Non-verbally, of course. And so the desire in the mom's heart, I want you to eat crushed carrots, is now where? In the child. I want to eat crushed carrots. I want what you want. How did we get there? Airplanes, choo-choo trains, marshmallows, a whole bunch of strange things happened. I want what you want. When do we pray that? When in the Our Father? Thy will be done. I want what you want. And so the Father, in his heart of love for each one of us, I love my Serra person. I want my Serra person to be happy. I want my Serra person to be healthy. I want my Serra person to be in Southern California on January 17th listening to some train of priests. How did you get here? Well, it's a long story, Father. You all have very long stories of an artful display of God drawing you and raising up your great desires. I want what you want. In love, I want to be here. Love concretized in you being here. So I want you to get in touch with this question, with this relationship of love in your own life, and maybe bring it to Mass this evening. Here's the question. When's the last time you experienced being truly cherished by God? When's the last time you experienced being truly cherished by God? It's so important to be in touch with God's love. Otherwise, my mission can come out of a lot of unlove. I don't know about you, but when I come to a convention sometimes, and I went to a lot of conventions as a vocation director, and my first convention as a vocation director, I was experiencing a lot of these sense of fear, the sense of fear, I'm not doing enough. I won't fulfill my role. This is too much. And the Institute for Priestly Formation came in and spoke to all the new vocation directors, and they named 3 lies for me. They said, you know what, as a new vocation director, you're going to hear this. You need to produce vocations. That's a lie. You're going to hear this, that you're not really a father, you're just a recruiter. That's a lie. And you're going to hear that you're all alone in this. And that's the deepest lie. The enemy always wants to isolate. And so in our mission, our going out in a mission, it's founded on the sense of being loved by God, which is how Judy framed everything. I'm a Serran because I've been blessed. If I'm not in touch with those blessings in a deep and personal and concrete way, my missioning will be shallow and lack fire. And so to stay with love, the most fruitful human activity is to receive God, receive love. If I'm not receiving love, I'll be a noisy gong. This is St. Paul. I can lay down my life, but if I have not love, I'm nothing. And Jesus is clear about it. Without me, you can do nothing. A lot of my apostolates and a lot of my mission as a diocesan priest is finding out what nothing looks like. Oh, I did that without Jesus. I was doing that on my own. I wasn't in touch with who he is. I wasn't living in love. I wasn't abiding in love. Jesus, if you want to summarize the Gospel of John, it's abide, stay. That's the work of the spiritual life, staying in love. That's the work of the married life, right? Stay in love. Day in, day out, choosing in the concrete moments and realizing what a gift each moment is. So as a seminary formator, what we're attempting to do is raise up men who are capable of receiving love from God in a profound and personal way, who aren't afraid to be alone with God. And this sense of boredom is so pervasive that we can even read the scriptures with this bored imagination. How do we know? Here's a clue. Adam is in the garden, and God looks at Adam, and he's seen this creation. It's all good, right? But then he looks at Adam, and he says, it's not good for man to be alone. Why does God say it's not good for man to be alone? Well, the bored imagination says he's lonely, he's by himself, he needs a partner to be with him. That's the bored imagination, because here's the reality. Adam is with God. He is being loved in an easy friendship with God. He is so full of love that he's meant to give it away. He's meant to share in the love of God so that man and woman can image how God lives in this effusive, freely giving way. And so the celibate man, he's not alone. He's giving his life away in this love because he's so overflowing with love. And I have to ask guys at the seminary, is that how you accomplish your studies, because you're so overflowing with love? Is that your sense of being in the parish because you're so overflowing with love? Is that your sense of being charitable around you to your brothers and others, the poor, because you're so overflowing with love? Or how much of it is duty? How much of it is grit your teeth duty? As a son of German farmers, duty is really important, okay? I get duty. I have a highly refined sense of duty. My dad was a Marine, served in Vietnam. I know about duty. Left over right, shoelaces, duty, all right? But that doesn't take you far enough. My first encounter with IPF, again being Omaha priest, was on retreat. In 1999, my class was greeted by a group of IPF spiritual directors, and I remember experiencing in that 8-day retreat how eager God was to be alone with me. And I had never really experienced that. It was a painful kind of, really? Yes. And my spiritual director at the time, Monsignor, then Hebda, now Archbishop Hebda, he was my spiritual director for my last 3 years of seminary. And I said this to him, I said, you really guided me through that time. I can't remember anything that you said to me. He kind of looked at me and smiled. But I remember, Archbishop Hebda, I remember your affect. And it was shot through with infinite kindness. And to believe in a God who's eager to be with me in infinite kindness, that was a revelation of love. Jesus calls his disciples so that he might be with them and send them to preach. That's from the Gospel of Mark. That's seminary formation in a nutshell. Be with them and send them to preach. Being with Jesus and receiving from him who he is, love incarnate, so that the man's affect will preach. Because I realize today, you're not going to remember a lot of words. You have a Monsignor who's got an essay online for you. You can get the words. You have Father Ballman who's referring to all the numbers. You can get the numbers, and you can get the stuff off the USCC website. I got no website. I got no essays. Got none of those things. And I tend to have those things. I tend to lean on those things. I like those things. I like having, I can make a good PowerPoint. I'm a PowerPoint guy. But what do we remember most after encountering someone? Do we remember their words? Not so much. We remember that affective experience. When I say affect, I'm talking about thoughts and feelings and desires traveling in such a way that there's a pattern of attitudinal presence. And I just remember meeting that guy. I'll never forget meeting Tom Osborne, head coach of the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I don't know anything that he said, but his affect was so gracious. Graciousness. If we're going to preach the gospel, our affect, where is it? Is it in touch with love? It is in touch with joy in an authentic way, in a lived, concrete way. And so building this culture of vocations, are we building up a culture in which that kind of man comes forward? That kind of man of excellence in his affect and his integrity and in his presence will lead others. Monsignor referred to Walker Percy, and quite frankly, I was going to lean into the same kind of challenges of the secular age. But once he started speaking, that's off the table. So I had to change, all right? Mid-course here, all right? As a home run. We have similar friends, and so we read similar things. It's really great to see that promulgated. That we live in an apostolic age. And so I do plenty of what Walker Percy also endorsed, and I think he called them thought experiments. I think he had some background in psychiatry. And so here's a thought experiment. When I look at a man in formation, can I imagine, so here's this thought experiment. Can I imagine this man when he graduates from college? Can I imagine him going to graduate school, getting married, and raising a family? And for you all, to put a little more teeth into it, can I imagine this man being married to one of my daughters? Am I comfortable with that? Why or why not? Because building a culture of vocations is about being honest about what we see. If we see something, say something. There are many times in working with men that they have significant things they need to be working through. And he leaves seminary, and I find out from Serrans or others, well, we saw that. We just didn't know how to tell you, Father. Say something. Building a culture of vocations is about building a culture of accountability. That excellence and affective presence will result when there's greater accountability. There's a feedback there. When a guy graduates from college, can I imagine him being in med school and raising a family? This is something I did for 7 years. I worked with med school students. Does he have that human formation baseline to permit him to be really available to people. And as he's going through seminary, I get the catastrophic sort of vision. Rectories are gone, 501c3 out the window, government is hostile. Basically, we're living in China. Would this man be capable of starting a church in a home and gathering great souls and discipling them and sending them out, equipping them to be disciples in the world? In other words, will this man be able to take care of the church, or is the church going to have to take care of him? That's a question that kind of provides that gut check. Oh, I don't know. If there's any doubt, say something. Because listen, how many of you have been to an ordination? A lot of us, okay? If you haven't been to an ordination, get there. This very interesting thing happens, right? The deacon says, Paul Hazing. And Paul Hazing stands up and he says, present, right? And then the bishop asks Paul Hazing a series of questions to make sure he's ready. Is that right? No. The vocation director will say, Most Reverend Father, Holy Mother Church asks you to ordain this man, our brother, to the order of presbyter. Nobody's talking to that guy. Nobody's talking to Paul Hazing. The church is going to have a conversation between the vocation director and the bishop. And the bishop will ask this question: do you find him to be worthy? I remember that one of the times I heard it was, it was your class, wasn't it, Luke?
What's that?
Cardinal Ratzinger.
Ah, yes.
He ordained you, and he said, do you find them to be
Do
worthy?
you find them to be worthy?
Yes.
And I slipped through.
Yeah, I know. All of us were like, who would be worthy? It's Ratzinger asking. Thick Bavarian accent. I mean, gosh, nobody could be worthy with that question. And here's the response that came from the rector then, or from the vocation director in most dioceses. After inquiry among the Christian people, that's you. I tell the men, I don't represent myself as a formator in the seminary. I don't represent myself. This isn't my will. I represent the will of the people. They want priests who are on time. They want priests who are generous. They want priests who have all these qualities. I asked a group of moms one time. They were, I think it was about 50 moms in a room. Half of them were breastfeeding, literally giving their lives right in front of me. So I thought, I was just inspired. Tell me what you want to see in your priest. And one in the back said, I want to be able to have a priest in my life that I wouldn't hesitate to ask, can you clean my toilets? I thought, okay. I've cleaned my share of toilets. Yeah, I can do that for you. She said, I don't want to have to hesitate to ask because I think he'd be available to be in our lives and in the mess of our lives. And so after inquiry among the Christian people, that's all of you, and upon the recommendation of those responsible, that's the seminary, I testify that they have been found worthy, that this man has been found worthy. That's the conversation of the church. The man stands by. He stands by because he's lived a life that should be demonstrably available to the people. And that this man's affectivity, this is the code word in the church for formation, and looking at formation, his affective maturity speaks of Jesus Christ, speaks of fatherhood. If all we do is cheer on vocations, if all we do is really support, we're gonna form mascots. And in this age, this apostolic age, we need fathers. Fathers who aren't afraid to be disliked. Dads, you all know that. In your own families. Fathers who aren't afraid to make some tough decisions. Parents, you know this. I marvel sometimes at some of the stringency we see in the business world, the expectations of the business world. They're not higher in the seminary. that our seminary isn't heightening. That, well, he didn't do so well in the business world, the work world. Well, the priesthood might work out for him. Please, God, stay away, all right? Or marriage and family life really isn't attractive to him, so priesthood might be the more respectable way to go. Please, God, stay away. Sometimes I'll hear this from priests, seminarians, or even lay people. In fact, one of my seminarians said, my mom says this to me all the time. There'll be a mom or a dad with a child, and the child will be just creating havoc, right? Crying, tantrum, and someone will remark, another reason for celibacy over there. When I hear that from a priest or a seminarian, I want to firebomb his car. And my seminarian who said that about his mom, he said, I always got upset when she said that. Now I know why. Because that parent with that child is an icon of God's patient love with each one of us. And if a celibate man isn't willing to be engaged in that kind of patient love in the mess, he shouldn't be coming forward affectively or spiritually for any reason for the priesthood. He's got to have that same heart of a parent to be with a tantrum child. So I'm just offering to you this encouragement. You have in your hearts and in your experiences a vision for what you want of priests. Trust your gut. Trust it. I remember kind of coaxing this out of my parents when my dad and my uncle, my mom passed about 7 years ago, but she had a very strong vision as well. She told me what vestments I was going to wear for her funeral. Yes, Mom, I will. Yes, she's firm that way. But I was just asking them at one point, we had a number of priests move on from the priesthood, and it was a painful conversation because they were wondering why, and I just said, well, Father so-and-so left the priesthood. Did he get married? No. Father so-and-so left the priesthood. Did he get married? No. Father so-and-so left the priesthood. Did he get married? No. What was going on in his life? Well, I think he struggled with his sexuality. And they couldn't quite put their finger on it then, but only now later can they, there was something going on there. There was some difficulty. He was late for Mass often, or he hung out with these people, or they couldn't quite name it. One of our rector, he had a group of Serrans in, and he was talking about this affective maturity, and they said, well, define it for us. And he said, well, how does this man respond to responsibility? And does he respond well to gifts? And one of the Serrans said, well, yeah, we sent 2 of these guys $500 checks, and we never, ever heard from them. Over 3 years' time, never heard from them. Now, those guys aren't in seminary anymore. But the rector asked, did you say something to the vocation director? No, we didn't. You see something? Say something. You have an expertise in your parenting. You have an expertise in your life of work. You have an expertise that is really valuable to the work of seminary formation to raise up the priests that you want and God wants. Because God's coaxing it, drawing you into it. I want more. That's the magis. I want more. And I can ask for it. Please ask for it. That's what I'm encouraging you to have today. Please ask for what you want. And if you see something, say something. Your children want this as well. All right? That's 11:32. Friends, stay with that question. When was the last time you've been cherished by God? And let that animate your mission going forward. Let love enlighten your choices here and your vision for priestly formation and a culture of vocations. Thanks for your time and listening.